Look at the person next to you. What if the person next to you wasn't really the person that you thought they were? Serial killers can hide right in the midst of what serial killers can be hiding right in this, being that they can be anyone and mostly people that we least expect. Serial killers is something I've always found interesting and I've done plenty of research on. Learning about the psychological disorders and the backgrounds of serial killers will help us understand the danger that they can bring to our communities. First, I will define what a serial killer is. Second, I will explain the characteristics of a serial killer. And third, I will give examples of very famous serial killer cases. Serial killers may be closer than we think they might be. According to the aggression and violent behavior last updated in 2014 by Dr. Lawrence Miller, who is a psychologist, author, and public speaker, the FBI defines a serial killer as a person with or without an accomplice and who has murdered at least 3 or more people within a certain time and with cooling off periods. Many of these serial killers have different motives, and there are 4 types of serial killers. The 4 categories that they would be, the types of categories that they are, would be a sexual sadist, a delusional, which is a person who is on a mission either to get rid of certain people that they believe aren't that they believe aren't meant to be in this world, or just because they're psychos and they think that those people don't belong in this world. The third one would be custodial, which is killers who murder people who are under their care, which means that the people that they're taking care of are dependent on them. And also, the fourth one would be a utilitarian, which is a serial killer who would kill a person in order to get something out of them. For example, like they kill to get their money or any type of financial gain. Now that I've explained what a serial killer is, I will explain a little bit about the characteristics. So why is a serial killer a serial killer? Many serial killers of the past have shown similar characteristics. Usually, serial killers range from 20 years old to 40, and they're usually white males. These criminals have had past abuse, or they come from broken homes, which usually leads to these murders. And some of the common acts that they perform on their victims would be rape, necrophilia, which necrophilia means that they have sex after they have killed a person, so they have sex with a corpse, and anthropophagy, which means that they can be cannibal or that they drink their blood. So now that I have explained a little about the characteristics that make up a serial killer, I will talk about a little bit about the serial killers that have been infamous here in the United States. So this serial killer here is Ted Bundy. He was known for killing women, and they were usually women who looked alike, so they usually had long hair. They usually wore white shirts, jeans, and boots. And they say that perhaps he had a really bad breakup with a girlfriend that he really loved, and he gained like hatred with girls that resembled his ex-girlfriend. According to the Times website, Howard Chua Owen says that Ted Bundy was one of the most famous serial killers here in America, and Ted Bundy was the typical handsome, charismatic man. He was actually a lawyer, which many people find interesting because, wow, like you wouldn't expect a lawyer to be a serial killer. And Ted Bundy, once he was sentenced to death, but then they found him not guilty. And after a few years, he was put to death in the electric chair in Florida. This here is Richard Ramirez. He was very famous here in the Los Angeles area. And according to the New York University graduate student Jennifer Grice, Richard Ramirez had a very tough life growing up. He grew up in a small town in New Mexico, which was a town that was very exposed to deadly chemicals. So they say that perhaps those chemicals growing up may have been a factor to his murders, and that it might have caused brain damage. He was also a Satanist, so he believed in the devil, and he would call himself the right hand of Satan. And Richard Ramirez actually just died last year in June. He died of natural causes. This here is Jeffrey Dahmer. He was one of the most gruesome serial killers probably in the history of America. He usually went for African American males. He was gay, and he also came from a very broken family. He went through a divorce, his parents divorced, and he felt that he was lonely and neglected all the time, so that's why he would keep most of his victims, and he would say that he'd rather have his victims there dead with him than to leave him alive. He would perform very gruesome acts on his victims. Some of them were the necrophiliac acts. He was also into taxonomy, which is like stuffing of humans. And he would also keep body parts like organs, and he would keep them as trophies in remembrance of these people. So now that I have explained a little bit about serial killers and what defines them and the characteristics that they attain, it's important to know that these serial killers are dangerous, and we really don't have a way of finger-pointing which person can be a serial killer. But it's important to know that there is people like this out there, and that we should be really careful. So now look at the person next to you, and consider everything that I have told you guys. Thank you.